as I've traveled the country after disaster, I hear the same message, that people cannot fully recover without our national partners. I heard that earlier today. And that's why it was so very important for Congress to act in a bipartisan way to provide these funds to HUD. And they did just that. In addition to the funding for the people here in North Carolina, HUD is going to provide 27 states and Guam $12 billion so communities just like yours here who are traumatized by disaster can also recover. I want to express publicly my gratitude to the leadership in Congress, folks like Senator Schatz from Hawaii and Senator Tillis, who sat before me and gave a passionate remarks about the importance of rebuilding quickly here in this great state. Look, Americans have witnessed way too many disasters, and each one is becoming stronger than the next. And as we build, we have to build back smart, we have to build back boldly. So we're not just responding to what happened, but we're also preparing for the future. I'd like to thank the HUD team, many of whom are here today. If you're a HUD team member, raise your hand. That's right, let folks know who you are. Because without their support and the support of people who are not in this room, including Marion McFadden, who leads our shop on disaster recovery, we would not have gotten $12 billion out the door in just 1 month. And so I want to thank the HUD team for getting that work done. That's your federal government in action. Let's hear it for the HUD team. In addition to that, we are also trying to do this a little bit smarter and cutting the red tape. So there's additional announcements about how we're streamlining the disaster recovery process so you all can hit the ground running. Let me end with this. When I joined my other cabinet members not too long ago to make the case for these funds, I said that it was imperative, it was a moral imperative that leaders respond swiftly and provide funding to people who needed it the most. And now that we have these funds, I turn to the leaders here and say, now we've got to hit the ground running. Yep. We have an obligation to make sure that this money is working for the people of North Carolina and other Americans across the country. So let's get to work. Thank you all.
Thank you, Acting Secretary. Ms. Todman, you are welcome to North Carolina. Honestly, you're welcome anytime, but if you want to bring $1.6 billion, come back again. It is wonderful to have you and the commitment of the Department of Housing and Urban Development to help us in this important work in Western North Carolina to rebuild. Matt, thank you for hosting us here at Mount Bismarck. Mayor, great to be with you. I think you're going to be tired of me before this whole process is over. And her co-chair on my advisory committee, Senator Corbin, is here. Senator, thank you for being here. The Honorable Todman has prioritized improving disaster response and recovery efforts at HUD, and this streamlining of the process is going to be important. Just a little context, it took over a year from the time this announcement was made when the hurricanes in the east happened before the first dollars came down from the government. We all know that is an unacceptable time frame. She knows it's an unacceptable time frame. She's going to go fast. We're going to go fast. We want these funds here as quickly as possible so we can invest in the people of North Carolina. Today's announcement is coming at a critical time. Temperatures are plummeting in these beautiful mountains. Keeping people safe and warm as we rebuild from Hurricane Helene is essential. Folks need a safe place to live. Hurricane Helene damaged or destroyed tens of thousands of people's residences. More than 12,000 North Carolinians are still displaced from their homes today. And even as we get through the immediate challenge of keeping people safely housed, we must consider not only their lives, but their livelihoods. Hurricane Helene severely damaged small business here in Western North Carolina. The economy is so dependent on tourism, and we all know that October and December are two of, if not the two biggest months of the year in sales. We need folks to be able to survive this winter so that they can thrive in the spring and summer. That's why I am so grateful to Secretary Todman and HUD for today's award of these community development block grants to assist with our state's disaster recovery efforts. The awards include $1.4 billion to the state, $200+ million to the city of Asheville, that are going to go to help in all manner of ways. These are flexible dollars. They will go for housing. They will go for infrastructure. They will go for business support and economic development. I look forward to prioritizing with the leaders of Western North Carolina as we determine where and how these funds can have the maximum impact on people's lives and livelihoods. I want to thank our congressional delegation for championing the disaster relief and that continuing resolution that happened at the end of last year, and President Biden for signing that legislation upon its arrival at his desk. In addition to the HUD CDBG disaster recovery allocation, I also want to announce my 6th executive order since I've been governor. I'm now 6 days in. All of them have to do with Hurricane Helene's impact on Western North Carolina. Today's executive order temporarily suspends certain federal trucking restrictions so that truckers can get propane to people as quickly as they can to deal with the freezing temperatures that folks are experiencing. People have to be safe and warm in their homes. And for those of you who remember Executive Order 1, all of 6 days, 5 days old, that was about cutting through red tape so we could put temporary housing structures, travel trailers, on people's properties to keep them safe and warm through the winter while they rebuild or repair their homes. I'm pleased to report that as of today, we've already installed 3 trailers. 18 more are in the process of being installed, and the acting secretary and I just came from Old Fort, met a wonderful woman there, Miss Groom, the homeowner. She lost everything. I mean, everything was gone off of her property. She had a trailer. She said, I went down the river. I kept waiting to see parts of it. There was nothing of her personal property that existed. The only thing she had was her car, which she had driven to Black Mountain. Even today, the lot is essentially scraped and denuded. It's mud. But as of this morning, she has a travel trailer that's attached to power and water. She can now live on her property, and she was grateful. She was grateful to the federal government. Those travel trailers are being paid for by FEMA, 100% reimbursable. And I want to thank my team in the governor's office for really working night and day through the weekend to help get that trailer in place so that she can now be back on her own land. Today's press conference underscores how rest, but we also have long-term needs, such as what has announced. I said last week that the values that are driving our work as we approach this broad recovery effort are urgency, focus, transparency, and accountability. And that is what we are going to do throughout this recovery process. We have a long road ahead. The work remains challenging and difficult. Congress has got to step up for more. What they did was a great first step in December. It is nowhere near adequate of what the federal government needs to contribute. Our General Assembly has got to step up more. They made it a first initial investment. They have got to do much more. We in the governor's administration have got to do a good job as stewards with these resources to make sure that they are going to help people in every instance to the maximum impact. And the local partners, you need to be persistent. You need to keep pushing all of us to do what we know is the right thing to do, which is to be here for the people of Western North Carolina. We will do all of those things. And now it is my pleasure to bring forward your mayor and my friend and my co-chair, Mayor Esther Manheimer.
Thank you all very much. Thank you, Governor Stein. Thank you, Secretary Todman. So much appreciate your being here to make this exciting announcement. As we transition from emergency response to a focused long-term recovery effort from the devastation of Hurricane Helene, this funding is a welcome and vital boost to our community's ability to build back better. And just so you know, here in this room, we have several folks with the city of Asheville. Our city council members, our vice mayor, Antoinette Mosley, is here, and Bo Hess and Kim Roney and Maggie Ullman are all here. In recent months, our community has come together in extraordinary ways. Residents, nonprofits like Mountain BizWorks, small businesses, and other organizations have stepped up to support Asheville and Western North Carolina during this challenging time. Immediately following the storm, the city took swift action to address the community's urgent needs. And I'm giving you some of these numbers to put in perspective what's happening today and the numbers we're talking about today to what we've been able to do to date with what little we had. We, the city of Asheville, repurposed $704,000 in existing CDBG funds from HUD to support businesses impacted by storm damage and the subsequent water outage. To further aid recovery, the city was awarded $1.7 million, thank you, in CDBG declared disaster recovery funds, which the city designated for business stabilization grants, rental assistance, and homelessness emergency shelters. Just giving you an idea of how this money can be utilized in some of the funds that we had available at that point. In addition, the city allocated $1 million for rental assistance and almost $1.5 million for home repairs and other local funding sources to help residents stabilize their living situations. The additional $225 million. Let me say that again. This additional $225 million for Asheville will address critical unmet recovery needs in infrastructure, housing, and economic revitalization. As the economic hub of Western North Carolina, these investments will extend far beyond Asheville, benefiting an entire region. I will continue to work with my co-chair of the Governor's Recovery Task Force, Senator Corbin, to help oversee for additional support from our state and federal partners, as the governor mentioned. We're not there yet. This is a good first step because we need to rebuild stronger than before. This funding is a first step. It is an important first step, and we are deeply, deeply grateful to you, Madam Secretary, and to you, Governor, for the laser focus on prioritizing the rebuilding of Western North Carolina. Your administration's focus, and we aren't going to ever get sick of seeing you out here, is so important for our region to believe that we can fully recover from this. And of course, our thanks goes out to our federal delegation, our Senators Tillis and Budd, and also Representative Chuck Edwards, for their amazing work to advocate for us in Congress. Many of us were up there running around, and that is a formidable task to face down Congress and get the resources you need to help your region. The people of Western North Carolina and Asheville, thank you. Thank all of you. You know, and on a personal note, as I conclude, I will say, I kind of can't believe we're here. I just get a little teary thinking about it. All the times we stood in the wreckage and the dark, and it's hard to believe it only happened a few months ago, that we're here today talking about this kind of funding to help us rebuild. So I just want to soak in this moment because it feels a little bit lightning speed, but it needed to be. So thank you. Thank you.
Anyone from the media have a question for the acting secretary
Or the
the
governor?
mayor or me? Yes, yes. Happy to take any questions.
Governor, you said you were working on getting the funds as quickly as possible. When can you all expect those funds to get here?
We don't know. I want to compliment HUD. I expect you're going to be making another announcement shortly about this process.
Yes.
In previous disasters, it has taken months before HUD has even published the rules of the road of how the money can be spent. Then the states have to put forward a plan, and that plan is subject to comment for 30 days or 60 days, I don't even know. Then the negotiations between HUD and the states begin. I'm telling you, it took over a year before those funds were actually flowing from the federal government 8 years ago. That is not going to be the case this instance. I want to be able to say the funds are going to be ready by this summer. I can't make that promise. She definitely can't make that promise because she won't be there. If she would make that promise.
I would make that promise.
Exactly. So all I can tell you is that the state of North Carolina will never be the cause for why the money has not yet come.
There you go.
Sometime this year.
Sometime this year, for sure.
Question. First of all, thank you very much. I run a small business in Asheville. I'm curious if there's conversation around a portion of this funding going towards small business grants specifically and or debt relief from lost property assets.
So I will, certainly the mayor has had the foresight to create a group of folks that will help steer the funding that we're announcing here today. But I can tell you that every successful disaster recovery includes strengthening the small business, period, full stop. And so I fully expect, without knowing the specifics, I fully expect that will be the core of what will happen with these funds at the state level. And you heard the mayor speak to her desires at the Asheville level as well.
And I'll just reinforce that. I mean, people need houses, but houses need people. And the way we have people in any community is they have to be gainfully employed, earning a living. The driver of employment across the state, but particularly in Western North Carolina, are small businesses. So we have to be there for them because they've taken it on the chin. They've lost incredible amounts of revenue. I'm sure you have a story to tell, just as I've heard from business owners in this room, about what disaster October was. And even to this day, they're back. The sales numbers are not back. So obviously there's this SBA. That was part of actually that disaster relief package that Congress passed, was finally funding SBA. So folks who had applied for SBA funding can now get those loans financed. But there are nonprofits, foundations that have to play a role in this. The state government has to play a role in this. And then these federal funds will play a role in it as well.
Governor, I know the official list of victims came out earlier this morning. Is there any chance any of these funds are going towards any?
At this point, we don't know how the funds are going to be allocated. We have not submitted our plan to HUD. Obviously, I read the list. I didn't know any of the names, but I read the names just to process it because I know that hundreds and hundreds of people knew those 103, 104 people. And it's heartbreaking to just think that each one of those people has a story, had a place, and they're gone. And their families, yes, they want their house back, but they're never going to get their loved one back. So we as community members, we have to wrap our arms around those folks and help them through this very tough time.
Thank y'all.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome back even without any cancel.
Especially now I know your Eric's brother.
Appreciate your trip down. Did you fly down?
After 2 flights got canceled this morning, another one got pushed back, it was quite the trip.
So you go back today?
I'm ready to Austin.
And that's the one, if they don't need it, just give us their bill.
Yeah, I'm not even there for this money, but they don't know that yet. So you guys are winning. You guys are winning. Good luck. Good luck. I mean, this is one of the
Yes. Absolutely.